Hey, you on mute, Jules?
Hello, everybody, and welcome again to the regular spot here on Autistic Radio for the 5:55 p.m. Harry's radio station, Harry's program about his Facebook page that he creates here to create discussion amongst us. It's one of the things that Autistic Radio is funded to do through Autistic Association, the charity that makes Autistic Radio possible. We had an offline meeting recently to discuss how our charity will go forward, how it will fund itself to keep the service that many of you have got used to, reliable and constantly there, ready for you to access in your lives. What I was able to report to the trustees was our independence, and the trustees made it incredibly clear that the independence was the unanimous feeling. We needed financial independence to continue working as we do here at Autistic Radio. So in our financial plans, we have our own sources of income that we create, and we have partnerships with businesses. So as everybody left the meeting, I think it was fair to say that we all felt as though, whilst so many other charities and so many other fellowship local action groups like ourselves are having difficulty with their funding, that we are secure here for the future. Is that the impression you had at the end of that meeting, Harry, our chairman?
Yes, absolutely. We've got a clear pathway, and it was explained thoroughly. And it's great to listen to how much we've grown and how much to look forward to. So yeah, I'm happy.
So, unless anybody has any other business at the open meeting, let's get on with the show. Anybody coming forward? Over to you, Harry.
Thanks, Jules. Good evening, everyone. This is Harry's Facebook for Sunday, the 3rd of August 2025. And this is where we go through the Facebook posts from the Autistic Radio Facebook page and the topics that are shared. And the first post is from Chloe Hayden, who's a blogger, autistic, ADHD, boldly me. And what Chloe has shared is the following. 28 years celebrated with real life. Megalodon teeth, a safari, and my first ever birthday that I didn't cry on. Because I'm learning that growing older doesn't mean letting go of your special interests, your sparkles, or your you-ness. It just means growing into them. It means becoming more unapologetic yourself. It means becoming more unapologetically yourself, honouring younger you's loves and interests and passions, and realising that joy, special interest, and new old balance does not have an expiry date. Most people's thoughts.
Well, I passed my 60th birthday recently, and I'm not letting go of my sparkles. Yeah, I think some of us do go through this idea every time we get to a birthday that says, oh no, we have to grow up now, we have to leave those childish things behind. But the childish aspects of people, surely they're the human aspects of people. They're the essential parts of us. They're the humour, they're the outrage, the jokes, they're the big emotions. And letting go of those childhood feelings and times and activities is a loss. And when you're somebody that plays at a festival or in an arts group and you're a bit out there, one of the things you often notice is that sometimes you see people looking at you as though they wish they could do something quite as expressive themselves, but they don't feel able to because of their age, or that it's not grown up enough for them. I think Chloe does well to embrace things like this.
Yes, it really kind of hit with me, because I do recall times where I had certain hobbies, I had certain behaviours or quirks or whatever, and I'd think there must be a time where you're supposed to grow out of it, become an adult, and it's the sort of the way society feels, that society sort of forcing you to be more serious about things and not have these quirks and have this kind of childishness about you. But you learn that having that is what keeps you grounded and what keeps you kind of happy, and what certainly kind of relaxes me. Because if you grow up too quickly and get serious too quickly, is what I tried to do at one point, it's disastrous for your health. Because if things are too serious and just not bleak, but just kind of plain, it's no good for certainly my autistic mind. So you do need those kind of childish things that you fall back on, which I like to reflect on and appreciate, because that's what keeps me, as what Chloe says about herself, keeps it about me individually and my identity.
I think 28 is one of these years, maybe 29, where you begin to start thinking about being an adult and put your childish ways behind you, as they say. Because I think during your 20s you can kind of still be childish to a certain extent, but I think in your late 20s you begin to start getting a bit more serious, so it must be kind of, I don't know if it's present within the poster here. Maybe. But yeah, I wouldn't want birthdays to be what reminds me of hanging on to, the childhood passions. That's kind of constant, They didn't drum that out of me.
The trick is to grow up, but don't grow old.
With respect, may I offer the alternative as to just grow old but don't grow up?
Well, I've started the interest late, all the ones I missed out on. I don't care what other people think.
That's the spirit.
What happened with me in this particular post as well is Chloe saying that this was the first birthday that I didn't cry on, because of learning that growing older doesn't mean of letting go of the special interest that that she has. But there must have been a feeling before then. It's like, oh, I'm getting into an adult now. I shouldn't have all these things. So it's, you know, that I believe that this be quite common in how many autistic people will be feeling. And sometimes not just be feeling, but sometimes by many people being told or being advised in a certain way, even if it's with good intentions. It's like, well, you can't really do that anymore. You're a bit too old for that. It's childlike. You know, you need to be an adult now. You need to grow up rather than it's been said, grow old. It's just like, you know, it does hit home.
I'm not seeing much of a link to autism here. It feels entirely human. You know, it's. I'm sure there are quotes in Shakespeare that would back this constant feeling we have as time passes at birthdays, not just significant numbers which are for some reason put in our heads that have zeros on them, etc., but a feeling of marking a movement forward and a loss. You have to change as you grow older is the feeling that people mourn. And I would hope that the sooner people realise in their lives that they have also got to do the opposite and cling on to as much of the childhood wonder, the childhood openness, and not allow life to beat them into prejudices and experiences that make them unable to embrace new things. I think the passage of childhood as a loss is something absolutely universal.
That's a fair point,
You get these psychology books that came out a while back about getting in contact with your inner child, didn't you? So it's been a kind of theme amongst people in modern society to experience that loss, as you were saying, Jules.
The autistic link, I feel, even though Jules right, it affects, you know, general society, especially with some comments that Robbie making about, you know, the social rule. There's neurotypical social rule is compliance and how you behave and how you do things, etc., the so-called norm. But autistic-wise, for many people, it's like you're out of kilter on what you should be at a certain age. Like you're a bit behind, or sometimes in some people's experiences, it might be forward in terms of what is so-called normal behaviour, normal sort of routine in, you know, a particular age. Like for instance, the way I'm talking is it kind of digresses a bit. It's like, you know, not being able to ride a two-wheel, you know, not being able to ride a bicycle until I was 10, not being able to tie my shoelaces and tie a school tie until I was about 14, 15. It's just like you're a bit behind there. I know it's a more of a developmental sort of thing, but it sort of links in, you know, with the age and what you're supposed to be doing, how to feel and how to do and all that sorts of things at a certain age. But you certainly are right. You'd hope that as time goes on that the general population don't feel bullied into you have to give up certain things because you're a certain period in your life. And the childlike things aren't a bad thing. They're actually a comfort for many.
Yeah, I like where you're going with this, Harry. I like the way you're expressing it because it is about it, even if you are in touch with these things, even if you want to hang on to these things, you will be judged, you'll be frowned upon. There'll be a social movement against you. Somebody's written in the text here, compliance. you're not compliant enough if you don't move on and then follow the next rules that happen at this stage of your life. For the next 5 years, you must wear this kind of clothing and like this kind of music, and then move on to the next stage. And that does see these little sort of constantly social pressures that come from your own age group, peer pressure throughout life. I get where you're coming with from that, and standing up and realizing that being human is about being all of your life all at the same time. You know, you are still a 4-year-old boy and a 14-year-old boy and a 24-year-old boy at all stages of your life in different ways. It's all in there. But yeah, we get frowned upon if we are doing what is quite a healthy thing, which is to hold on to these things that are enthusiasms that other people see as childish.
A strange thing I noticed was in late teens, there was an awful lot of people wanting to be quite old. They were wanting to be grown up. They would dress in order to like get access to places where you had to be older. And a teacher was a bit concerned about myself and some others, saying like, you know, you're losing your youth. You're trying too hard to be old, you know, and you're only 17. You know what I mean? You're acting like you're 25, which was a big difference back then.
Yeah, I can relate to that in many ways. I can remember being in my teens, 13, 14. I was sort of desperate to become an adult in certain ways because I felt I was getting pushed towards it anyway because of the social pressures and educational pressures. And then I felt by the time I got to 18, 19, I felt that I grew up too quick, that I sort of missed the sort of, the enjoyment of youth or the younger teenage. I know a lot of it's stereotype. You hear like stories and people talk about these sort of things that they've done. You're thinking, I sort of kind of missed that. I kind of went too far ahead. So I'm more protective of things that I like at a child like now because of that. And I think a lot of autistic, not just autistic, but a lot of adults will be the same. It's like, especially if you feel you kind of missed out the first time. I can remember my sister saying to me years ago that I dressed like an old man. I always found that comical, even thinking about it now. And that was before I started wearing the old man hat to cover my world a bit.
You remember the bit when folk would go to university when they were 17? To me, that was quite a mature looking experience. It's like they'd matured. And yet, when I went to see my friends at uni, they were still acting like late teenagers. You know what I mean? But I always thought like, oh no, you've got this responsibility stuff. You know what I mean? It's instantly grown up. What's the point I'm trying to make there? Just that experience of how certain things in life, what Harry was saying there, made me think of that, because in Scotland the culture is kind of drinking and socially. So it's like getting into pubs as soon as you can, you know. So 15, 16-year-old, you know, shaving a lot so you can get a moustache and get into a pub or something like that. So that society requiring you to be grown up, you know, and culturally you'll play that game in certain ways.
I think it's the access of looking older that's the key, isn't it? Sex, drugs, booze, rock and roll all have an age limit. So you would, dress with a leather jacket and whatever the shoes were at the time, so that, somebody did sidle up to you and offer you some cannabis, or somebody did serve you if you went to get some beer or on the train, or get your tobacco. A lot of growing up was to get access to stuff. But I couldn't wait to grow up. I left home at 16, and I had a pregnant girlfriend at 20, and I was happy about it. And everything was about getting autonomy as quickly as possible for me, and I don't regret any of that. I don't think I missed out on anything, really. I didn't go to this extended youth that people have in other ways through university and gap years.
The strange thing is, there's no plan really, though, is there, for anybody's life?
Robbie says something interesting in the text. Why do you have to remove all the fun out of life to be responsible? And that's what it appears to be in many ways, doesn't it? And the logical song by Supertramp that GR mentioned is, yeah, I've listened to that song and I can resonate with you. We can remember that because that does, when I do listen to it, it does sort of, it's not autobiographical or anything, but it kind of links well.
I'd just like to ask, what's a narwhal ballon? I mean, I'm assuming it's a balloon in the shape of a narwhal, yeah?
I don't know. I don't know if I even said it properly.
I find certain parts of Pink Floyd's The Wall very autobiographical for me.
Yeah, there's obvious lines that come to mind, but I suppose you're thinking about all of it.
Yeah, the lines about being a child and comfortably numb resonate with me.
Yeah, I think there are several of the Pink Floyd albums that have an affinity with the autistic experience and what's important to us.
It does make you think about Roger Waters, who is currently just such a sort of figure in the media, given his passionate protests and concerns about things in the world. He's present, and he has been present all through many of our lives and experiences.
The next post is from the Autistic Poet. A public figure, life on the spectrum as an autistic adult, out and about with my family, poems, thoughts and information in all aspects of autism and diagnosis. And what they shared is a poem. And the introductory text says, "This is something I started one night early morning last week. It's about how when you're in bed, you can have all these fantastic plans and ideas which during the day seem impossible or ridiculous. Or maybe that's just me. Nighttime is the right time to think big, to dream and to scheme of all you'll achieve, like finding a cure to the world's worst disease, or saving the planet from weather extremes. Maybe making $1 million from your own company, then donating it all to a small charity. Before giving a speech in front of a crowd, up on a stage, standing confident, loud. When my family watch, so they're finally proud of their son, husband, father, a man, not a mouse, on a wheel that's going nowhere. 'Cause in the dark no one can hear you dream, snug beneath a duvet filled with hope and self-esteem. Everything is possible and everyone's a friend. Nothing overwhelms, and for once I comprehend how to be. Nighttime is the right time to feel safe and at ease, to wake up and shake up your thoughts and beliefs, to wallow in courage, not follow but lead, not destined to fail, but expect to succeed. For from darkness comes light, these bedbugs don't bite. For from darkness comes light, these bedbugs don't bite. They hug and they rub, rustling plans so they shine. Replenish adventure, intention, desire. Drive and invention, all lost in the fire. Ignited by daylight and fueled by the stress of trying to be aiming high, scoring less. What I won't do by day, well, by night time I will. There's solace in darkness where everything's still. What I won't do by day, well, by night time I will. Till day breaks the spirit, sunrise melts the faith. By 6 a.m. confidence has been burned away. Prepare for the onslaught and put armour on, for night meets day once more. What's people's thoughts on the Autistic Poet's poem just shared?
So it's a rare thing to get a bit of poetry, isn't it, these days? And a line that struck out me there was, "'Cause in the dark no one can hear you dream." Yeah. And it's tricky reading poetry, so well done, Harry. It's like the punctuation sometimes can really throw you, and line after line, it's rhythmic, but sometimes your eyes go as well. So well done there. And poetry's deep, so it takes a wee while to get through it, but the initial thing is always a rhythm, isn't it? And the occasional phrase that catches you.
I really enjoyed hearing that, and it's clever, the wee line at the end, for night meets day once more, and it's night with a K.
The knight with the body armor.
Yeah, I can sort of relate to it myself. I mean, I've done poetry in the past, and it's been this sort of kind of, I'm only assuming here because I don't know the person personally, but the sort of kind of language, the sort of kind of flow of how the poetry goes, it's like deep feeling and it's like inspirational. It's like you're letting frustration out and trying to get an understanding of how things are within yourself, but also put it across as inspirational for maybe others. And I've had all these, and I still do have all these ideas, and it's during night time. But it's generally not in bed because I don't tend to go to bed, at a reasonable time. And it's all these ideas and do this and do that. And then sometimes it can come a time where you're stressed out and it comes to daytime and it doesn't seem that it's going to come to fruition. And you're a bit frustrated with yourself. So I sort of understand that. I think maybe I did a bit of that when I was a teenager. All these plans of how I was going to act and how things are going to be better, how things, things seem, as it says, more easier to do with yourself and a silence and darkness, to think and feel out certain things. But when it comes to the daily stress of daytime, life, it's hard to concentrate, and then you kind of feel that it's kind of holding you back a bit. That's my interpretation.
It's a lovely transition phase he's dwelling in here, the moment, I suppose, before sleep where your mind is maybe racing with stuff. but you're relaxed enough to really let it flow. There's a great word, hypnagogia, about that moment when you're just about to fall asleep and you can actually have highly creative thoughts. But some of these lines are just great, What was the one I was looking at there? These bedbugs don't bite, they hug and they rub, rusting plans so they shine, replenish adventure, intention, desire, drive and invention. Rusting? Yeah, cool. Robbie said in text that he usually writes at night. That's interesting because I'm usually a wee bit tired at night, so I don't, in my eyes, maybe not as great. So I try very hard to write in the morning. And once that, like David Lynch, that first coffee's in me,
Yeah, I'm more with Robbie. When I used to do a bit of writing, particularly poetry, a lot of it was done at night because it's like summing up the end of a day, which something has happened or maybe not happened, or maybe it's kind of preparing for the day after. Yeah, so it just seems where I stay is I live alone and it's quite quiet in terms of neighbours, and the area I stay is quite. When it gets at night time, it's quite mostly, quite nice and quiet. It just seems that's the best time to reflect and put it to paper. I'm surprised I don't do that now. It's just one of those habits I fell out of. I think it's because I'm on the online all the time. Not that I should stop you from typing a poem. And Robbie says about when his mind is not busy with something else and the best times at night time. Yeah, it sounds, it makes sense. When things are quieter, not much is happening. Or less things are happening.
Yeah, I find I do it all the next day because I've more energy, so all that stuff you're catching up on at night, I'll digest it with some sleep and then go over yesterday the next day.
And Robbie also says, and it kind of makes sense as well, it's like, don't write to order, it's just when it comes to me. Obviously, something just comes in the mind and put it down on paper. Yeah, I can respond to that. Yeah, if you don't write them down straight away, the thought's gone and you feel it'll be gone forever, so it's just getting it down and put, yeah. I hear a lot about songwriters and poets that actually have said that when they're talking about their inspirations and things. The next post is from SendWise Hub, which is an education page. AUDHD advocate, parent, article writer and resource creator focused on safety, communication and agency in ways that honour neurodivergent experiences. And they've shared the following. Everyone, I could really use your thoughts on something. It's merely an idea that came to me and I am uncertain if it's practical or valuable. SendWise Hub was established by me, a parent of neurodivergent children, but it has evolved into something much larger. I have delved into my own neurodivergence, received a diagnosis, and what I share and write about covers far more than just special educational needs and disabilities. Should I consider renaming it to better represent this? What are the advantages and disadvantages? Oh, my brain. What's people's thoughts?
Can somebody remind me what SEND stands for?
Special educational needs. Autism would be included in that for some people, but there's usually criteria and lines to cross.
You see this a lot sometimes, people who maybe set up hubs. Is this what this is? It's like a community-based kind of contact point. There can often be burnout. Let me read this again. Should I consider renaming it? So the problem is the name, right?
What it looks like is someone has started something with a special purpose, and things have progressed and developed in a certain way, and they're just feeling maybe the name of what they're doing doesn't reflect on the work that they do now to what they did when they started it. It's just basically a post that's kind of reflecting and looking for ideas and may or may not make changes. I kind of like things like this because it creates conversations, within just to, and it sometimes lets you reflect back on the work you've done so far. And because sometimes you don't stop, sometimes you just keep going and keep going. Then there's a reason that you do stop, and then you actually look back to all the achievements and the progress that you've made, and that is some boost. And if it feels it's progressive enough and if you need to change, you can do so. But sometimes people just keep the name because it's something that's the identity. Or if they change the name, it may be changed slightly. I just find it interesting, the conversations that these bring.
Okay, I feel as though I will, I'll bite, sometimes you see posts like this and really it's another way to bring attention to themselves, and it's worthy and it's a good idea, etc. But expecting people to take advice is quite difficult. But if this person is open to it, what they seem to be saying is that they started out with special and educational needs in mind, and to reach out and become a hub and a resource, and they succeeded in that. We've used them and published them and many times, but they themselves have been on the journey where, as adults, they also realise that the people running it are autistic as well. So broadening it out over that period of time is what's happened. Do they lose some of the brand that they have built, or do they and then risk moving it to something else? And then what would you move it to? How can you embrace the whole of autism into what they do? So they've got a struggle there. But there is a reality in this, is if your brand, if your name does not fit what you do, it's a disadvantage. It is a serious disadvantage in small business and in charity and in any organisational situation. So is it worth the risk? Usually it is, because the people who have got to know you and have changed with you will understand, and they will move with you, and you will gain more new people when what you're actually having out there as a name and a brand suits what you're actually doing now.
The next post is from Autistic Flair, which is a community page. Autistic Flair is an online community and resource hub dedicated to amplifying autistic voices to change perceptions of autism to create a more inclusive society. And what they've shared is a presentation, and what they're saying is it's incredibly important to bust the myth that all autistic people lack empathy. But I also think we need space to talk about the complexity of empathy and the different ways it can show up. Can you relate to this experience, Katie Forbes? And the presentation is called I Want to Admit Something About My Autistic Brain, and it might be a bit unpopular. For a large part of my life, I felt little to no empathy for others. I couldn't put myself in someone else's shoes, and others' expressions were confusing. And honestly, I didn't even try to read them. Why? Because I was completely focused on doing things right. You see, many autistic people go through life feeling constantly misunderstood. We often get told we're saying or doing the wrong thing, even when we're trying our best. And when our behaviour doesn't meet unspoken social expectations, we're often met with distance. Sometimes that looks like feeling left out. Other times it looks like bullying. It really, really sucks. So, like many autistic people, I became super focused on trying to get it right. It was my top priority. And because I also struggled to read those feelings in the first place, empathy wasn't something that came naturally. Looking back, I can see how I probably came across as cold, rude, or even dismissive. Not because I was, but because my energy was spent trying to survive socially, trying to be acceptable. Why am I sharing this? Because, yes, it's incredibly important to bust the myth that autistic people lack empathy. I also think we need space to talk about the complexity of empathy and the different ways it can show up. Not all of us relate to the stereotype of being overly empathetic, and that's okay too. Young Katie wasn't trying to be hurtful, bless her. She just wanted to get it right. She was doing the best she could. What's people's thoughts?
I think that was really well expressed and nicely edited down and digested for us. I really applaud Katie for putting that out there. And it is a controversial idea because at the moment we're, as a community of autistic, often trying to sell a lot of positives and boost them, and to counteract the pendulum of we are without empathy, to counteract the stereotypes that go with that, we often are asked to look on the over-empathetic, the super-empathetic, and the everything affecting us way of the world. And where are we? Well, in a person like me, I have both. I am in situations often where a film or something takes me over to such an extent, or somebody's story or something. I feel that over-empathetic with other people's feelings taking me over happens in certain circumstances, but I also feel the opposite, where I'm incredibly dispassionate when people are expressing the most enormous emotions. And we're all somewhere in different groups, in different camps, in different situations. So yeah, it's a good idea for us not to try and create another stereotype. And like Katie says, that there are different versions.
The next post is from Neurodivergent Lou, and she shared a presentation which is called 5 Ways Struggles May Fluctuate as an Autistic Person. Sometimes I can tolerate bright lights and music. Other times the same sensory input would lead to a meltdown or shutdown. Sometimes I manage a change in plan. Other times I can't cope with it at all. Sometimes I'm able to remember to eat and drink. Other days it has been hours and hours and I don't understand why, I just don't feel right. Sometimes I might be able to socialise or work, but the day after I might be in bed out of energy. Sometimes tasks like getting dressed or tidying up are manageable. Other times the steps of those tasks feel impossible. What's people's thoughts?
It feels a bit like what Jules was sharing about empathy as well, which like I relate to, and this like how certain smells might be okay on one day and totally not on another sort of more sensitive day.
It's just that absurdity of life. It's like, certainly my autistic self is like, you feel you've got something sussed, like how to cope with a situation. But then you forget that each day may be different in terms of how you feel emotionally and how you can cope with certain things, like doing a task or being in a certain environment. And it can fluctuate, it can change, and it's just so frustrating because I've planned for years to be able to cope with certain things, but I just need to accept that you have good days and bad days. And that's not always understood by people on the outside. In fact, many people take the approach where you're feeling out of energy and struggling to complete a task of any kind, or even just going somewhere, they put that as laziness and not trying. And that's very unhelpful for many people that are struggling on certain days. The next post is from Autistic Realms, which is an education website page advocating for better understanding of neurodivergence and mental health in education. And they've shared a journal on neuro-affirming neurodivergent and disabled wheel of life, reclaiming flow on our own terms, free wheel of life. And I'll touch on the introduction. What does flow and balance mean when your energy is unpredictable? Your needs are sensory and relational, and your life doesn't fit in the standard neurotypical mould. For many neurodivergent and disabled people, traditional self-help tools don't always work. They often leave out the things that matter most, like flow states, energy accounting, sensory overwhelm, and the quiet work of meaningful recovery engaged with our interests and things that really matter to us. That's why I created a neurodivergent and disabled wheel of life, a gentle, flexible tool for checking in with yourself and honouring your own authentic needs. This version includes 12 realms that reflect real lived experience, not a neurotypical ideal of productivity and balance. So the 12 realms in the Wheel of Life are: number 1, interest and flow. Do you have space to deep dive into your passions? Flow is more than focus, it's nourishment. Number 2, energy levels and spoons. How much energy do you have right now? Are your spoons depleted? What helps restore your energy? Number 3, relationships and community support. Do you feel safe, connected, and understood in your relationships and communities? Number 4, sensory environment. How does your environment support or dysregulate your sensory system? Number 5, finances. Are your needs being met financially? Are you accessing support or benefits you're entitled to? Number 6, family and home. Is your home a place of safety, access, and grounding? How are your close relationships? Number 7, rest and recovery. Are you resting in ways that feel meaningful? Not just sleep, but stimming, decompressing, and time with your interests and sensory experiences that help you. Number 8, mind. How is your emotional and cognitive world? Are your thoughts and feelings being held? Number 9, body. How is your physical health? Are you able to tend to your body with care and compassion? Number 10, soul. What's nourishing your creative or spiritual self? Where do you feel connected to awe, wonder, creativity, or deeper meaning? Number 11, work, career. How accessible and aligned is your work, study, or daily output? Is it in balance with the rest of your life? And number 12, personal development. Are you growing in a way that's authentic to you? Learning, unlearning, becoming. What's people's thoughts on this?
Yeah, I like this. It's what you read out. It kind of hit on something that I've been thinking about quite a lot. That it's. I notice that how I function is quite dependent on how well resourced I am, and these are all different. These are all what I think of as like resources, and I don't know. I feel like it's just a bit more of a holistic way to look at challenges rather than, oh, this is just all my autism, but to look at the environment and how it is, and be, trust yourself and your own like needs and things. so that you're able to sort of start adjusting your environment to suit you rather than always feeling like there's something wrong with you. That's what I got from it.
Yeah, that's what I like about things like this. It seems like it approaches things from a different angle, and the thought of it doesn't make me certainly feel kind of stressed about thinking about my life and my situation and how things are within my life and the balance and lack of balance, whatever, etc., health situations. It's like, it's not saying that anything you're doing is a failing, it's just sort of a checklist to sort of understand or to help you kind of basically get on with life and not to feel bad about challenges that you may face because you're struggling with certain things, because of many things that, as we all know, can be beyond your control. It's a positive spin, even though it's quite in-depth and quite, emotional, even just reading it out and even talking about it. It's like a positive kind of step rather than just talking about how bad things are and how you struggle. It's like a progressive thought, a progressive way forward.
I like how it begins with interest and flow, then everything that follows. I wonder if it was designed that way, to follow on from number one, and then how to sustain and manage and support number one.
What I like about it is the talking about work and activity, or work and career basically. It's actually one of the last ones. All before that, it's all talking about self and health and well-being, which I think is very refreshing.
I think we need tools to quantify, visualize, categorize, put together the difficulty that we have with the variability of what we experience with our autistic selves in relationship to the world outside. Some things can change so often from one situation to another. So anything that helps us to get a sense or get a handle on that has got to be a good thing as a tool.
Yeah, I think it's Helen that's Autistic Realms. She's very good at this sort of thing. She's good at designing maps and plans, and the more I look at this, I'm kind of getting into the colour scheme. And then, I grew up with astrology and stuff, so this is just looking like a zodiac. But you can get this with like taste charts and colour charts and art, correspondences between things, say, in triangles or squares, but yeah, it's a good beat. It's like a mandala. It's very meditative.
I'm actually looking at the headings now there and seeing actually these all correspond with the houses on a astrology chart as well. So I wonder if that's been the framework she's used for it. I'm looking at the first house of the body, the 12th of the soul. It's very close to the ascendant in the 12th house. Relationships in the 7th.
Do you find that's corresponding? I'm seeing there's a credit and origin down here, but I think it's the original idea of the Wheel of Life concept. But this is an adaptation. Yeah.
Yeah, it would make sense if the Wheel of Life is connected to the houses, eh?
Is the Wheel of Life not Buddhist? Oh, it mentions scoring there. Have a think about what score out of 10 you would give each area of your life, or colour in where you feel you currently are. What areas would you like to focus on? Yeah. So it's a good meditative tool. Give it that.
I can't remember the name of the graph that you'd end up with then using that, but it would be a little bit like you'd end up looking like a kind of star pattern where you can see where you were strongest and not.
The next post is from the autistic teacher, who's a public figure, autistic and proud, sharing insight and understanding to help the autistic community. She shared a presentation. And it's about surprises. And the introduction, she says that I really hate surprises. It's not that I don't like them just because I don't like them. It's the feeling of being out of control, overwhelm, and anxiety that they bring. Some of us really don't like surprises. And the presentation goes on to say, surprises can add an unexpected sparkle for many people, popping up to break the monotony of daily life. Yet, for some autistic individuals, surprises aren't welcome disruptions, but rather triggers for anxiety, discomfort, and even distress. Why surprises could be challenging? Number one, the need for predictability. Many autistic individuals thrive on routine and predictability. Surprises disrupt the structure and certainty we often rely on to feel secure. When the expected order crumbles, it can feel like the ground beneath us is shifting. Number two, the sensory overload. Surprises often come with sensory elements like loud noises, bright colours, or unexpected social interactions, which can overwhelm someone with sensory differences. Number three, social communication. Some surprises, especially social ones, require immediate reciprocal interaction, which can be daunting for those who find social situations challenging. Some of us like to plan and script what we should say to avoid the feeling of being a rabbit in headlights. How you can support. Number one, communicate and prepare. If you're planning an event or activity that includes an autistic person, inform them in advance. Knowing what to expect can significantly reduce anxiety. Offering a simple, detailed explanation can make surprises easier to cope with. Number two, understand the preferences. Everyone is different, so ask the person about their preferences. Some might be open to small surprises if they're given basic outlines or hints. Open communication helps avoid misunderstandings and ensures comfort. Number 3, offer control. Allow an autistic individual to have some control over the environment when possible. This might mean letting them know when a surprise might occur or offering them the option to participate or opt out. Number 4, be patient and supportive. If a surprise triggers anxiety, be patient and offer support without judgment. Help the person to find a quiet space to decompress or allow them to leave if necessary. It's important to recognise that not everyone experiences surprises in the same way. By acknowledging them and respecting these differences, you can provide meaningful support to autistic individuals who may struggle with the unpredictability that surprises bring. What's people's thoughts on this? I found it interesting to share because surprises is not something that I'm keen on personally, although I've been through those experiences and mostly they have been pleasant. But in order to surprise someone, it's something going to be done out of the blue. So this presentation is quite, I understand it, but it's quite interesting because if you make someone aware of a surprise is coming, it's no longer a surprise. So maybe it's offering that maybe having a surprise to someone who's autistic may not be a good idea in the first place. But maybe it's trying to be reasonable by offering sort of alternatives and ways you can adjust it. But I found it interesting, this particular topic.
I think there's an element of the human surprise, the surprise that's intended by a human. And then there's, as I put in the text, their life can surprise you. The unexpected happens, and that's not the intention of anyone really. That's circumstances, and that goes against or rubs up against one's sense of routine perhaps, or predictability. So recently I've been experimenting with unpredictability and surprise to see if it can be a positive thing. I'm reserving judgment on that one just now.
On that note, Raymond, it's International Clown Week this week. And that's what it just reminded me of it when you talked about experimenting with, I can't remember the word you used now, but it was like unpredictability, I think. Yeah.
Unpredictability. Clown Day.
Clown Week. And I think it's because it's August, because there's a type of clown that's like the August, like clown, I think.
When did clowns begin? Sorry, that's a tangent.
I mean, I think in the West, we've got do we not think of court jesters and things like that? And then there's interesting clown roles in some Native American societies where they're seen as people who do things the opposite of like the mainstream. So if everybody else is walking forwards, they're clown, they're hayokas, and there's different names, different kinds depending on which tribe. But they might walk backwards, or if everybody was really hungry, they would say, "Oh, I'm so full," and if it was hot, they'd complain of being cold. And it's kind of like a bit of a role. It's quite a spiritual role as well. And I just think it makes me think interesting thoughts when I reflect on clowns in society, and like the court jester, like being the one that was allowed to just speak the truth. Or in our stories about court jesters, they just got to say the blunt stuff, say the truthful thing, and get away with it. Oh, we've got some more facts in the chat though.
So you walk with or shins against the sun. I've got an autistic friend who's absolutely obsessed with mockery, in society, especially in matriarchal society. This idea of bringing people down to size, as it were, especially if they're self-important to a certain extent. And you can see that almost like it's... I don't want to get too deep on this because we're off tangent, really, but it does have this element of surprise about it, the court jester, and these mocking figures, these comedy characters almost. It's almost shamanic.
The GR shared in the chat that clowns began in 2400 BC in Egypt.
Yeah, you see, I absolutely believe that the clown role has been fundamental to our societies, and there would be some version of clowning that happens right back to the Bronze Age, Stone Age. As soon as somebody started putting leaves on their head to pretend it was a wig and playing to make faces, the clown and its formalised versions, like you say, the jesters and the commedia dell'arte, it really is so built in there. But modern day clowning, yeah, I reckon it is a few thousand years old, but not everybody's into clowns.
No, there's a dark edge, to current clowning.
Yeah, clowns have often been used as a way of... I mean, you could take cabaret as a version of clowning, when during the Weimar period, the cabaret scene, the clowning of and lampooning, it's also part of clowning, and there's always been that edge of satire in it, that the king is both being revered, amused and lampooned.
Going back to the presentation, I mean, what's Jules' thoughts on the element of surprise and how it affects autistic people, even if just within, your personal experiences?
If I go to the supermarket and there's an empty space on the shelf, or they've moved things around, that's just so stressful for me. And I think you'd count that as a surprise.
Yeah, I think that's what I meant by the unintentional surprise. I mean, a human did that, but not intended to affect anyone in particular. It's just circumstances. But of course, we have these routines, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I had a surprise yesterday. Went to the football match at Dumbarton. Although when you think about it, shouldn't be that much surprise. As a new season, a new owner, so things have been changed, and there's probably information, somewhere to let you know about that. But you get used to your own routine. You just don't look beyond that. And one of the surprises was how bigger the crowd was than the last time I was there. And the other one that was a surprise, not to me personally, but to a friend that was with me, had to go in another door to access the stadium because I had a season ticket and he didn't. Like before, last season, you just went through the same place, which says, which is normal entry for home fans. But the place he was told to go says season tickets only, but they no longer use that for season tickets only. So it kind of caused a bit of confusion before we kind of get into our seats. And that kind of element of surprise sort of kind of throwing me. And the way home, getting a train back, I'm thinking I'll get a train back from here, I'll get to my house quicker, only to discover that there's a electricity supply problem with the trains, and they're all running late, and everybody about you is all stressed out and angry and, you know, really peeved off, and you're kind of trying to keep yourself sort of calm within all the chaos, because that's a surprise to everyone. So, but in the thing of surprises, and in terms of intentional surprises like a birthday event, for example, I've had that. I had that for my 40th, and it was a complete surprise. And I took it well, although it kind of took. The only thing I frustrated about it was that much of a surprise that it was like a barbecue back in my mum and dad's, you know, back garden. But I've already eaten, so I wasn't hungry and didn't really want to have anything at the barbecue, which was quite unfortunate because my dad made a lot of effort. And also, I didn't dress appropriately, I felt, for the occasion. I didn't dress badly, but I would have made more of an effort to dress a bit smarter for that particular occasion, because I've seen some family members I hadn't seen in a while, etc. So that element of surprise did hamper, obviously, the planning that I would have made, so that I'd feel more comfortable when meeting more people. And of course, actually, the social interaction that I wasn't expecting that day as well. There was a lot more people than I expected to be at that particular time doing a particular thing. So it all ended well, but I can certainly understand why many people would not react well to that particular situation, even though it's good intentioned. Next post is from Embrace Autism, which is a mental health service science website diagnostic centre page. Research-based information and empowerment for autistics, by autistics. Embrace your advantages. And the post is from the Fun Fact Friday series. And what they say is, did you know autistic people are up to 40% faster at problem solving and often excel at recognizing complex patterns? They frequently use perceptual regions in the brain to process information in highly efficient ways, making them stand out in fields like coding, music, engineering, and design. From strong pattern recognition to hyperfocus and deep interest, many autistic individuals develop exceptional abilities in their chosen area. So join the conversation. Did you notice this kind of strength in yourself or someone you know? Share an example of pattern spotting, hyperfocus, or a special interest that shines. What do people think about this particular bit of information?
Embrace Autism seem to be focusing on this recently. Not superpowers per se, but inherent qualities, say. Yeah, I don't know where to go with that. They just seem to be focusing on it. I'm just wondering why. But it's good. I support it because I think that conversation should happen more.
I just wonder if this is reinforcing this idea that we're either semi-catatonic or we're super geniuses. and most of us are in the middle of that, and so we're just really just ordinary people.
Yeah, I can relate to the concerns that you're expressing there, Jill. But we're also talking about one aspect of human brain activity, which is problem solving, and the human brain has so many other strengths and that you can measure. So having it that one of the activities is not exactly calling us super geniuses, it's actually saying that a percentage of us can problem solve quite quickly. I don't know if you watch these quizzes that they have on the television, like the 1% Club, and the questions in there are very similar to sort of Mensa questions. And I'm fairly certain that many of those questions, autistic people are able to just look at them, see them immediately, and they jump out of them. That happens for me, it happens for my wife. But other questions, there's no jumping out at all. There's no easy look for it, and that is because it requires, and it's chosen to require, a different way of the brain working, and it doesn't adapt and it doesn't fit the way my brain works. So what is entirely simple in one circumstance, a problem solving thing, another relation task might not be.
I'm curious what they mean by patterns here.
Finding patterns of correlating data in large fields of data, or seeing pattern which isn't obvious to other people, has been observed in autistic people quite often under studies. And anecdotally, I would say that's my experience. I'm very good at where's Wally, because I can see when the pattern breaks.
Yeah, I get that. Because I work on patterns too, but not with data. It's almost emotional patterns. It's correspondences and relationships. I'm rubbish at quizzes. I'm rubbish at these quizzes you're talking about on TV, where it's like, oh, we'll give you 5 or 6 things, and you know what's going on here. I just can't do it. I can't figure it out. So, but each to their own. We all work in different ways, and a lot of it's conditioning. But patterns very often are seen as data here, or scientific, or something like that. That's why I was curious about the word patterns, because sometimes I don't think they're dwelling on the kind of patterns that I'm tuning into.
30-odd years ago, I got sent for psychometric tests by the job centre, and one of the things was called space relations. It was like a dice being opened flat and a picture of a dice, and you had to say which one was which folded pattern would create the dice, and I scored off the scale on it. So that's probably my thing.
Yeah, that would also fit into what people call a spiky profile on things there, GR, because that very specific task of fitting the net of a shape to create the 3D shape and know which side would correspond to being on the outside when it was folded, you know, that's a very specific set of skills. And then on another thing, you might not have the same because your word association isn't the skill that goes for it. But pattern recognition is one of the things that's chosen for us.
That's interesting. I mean, I'm still trying to work out what this actually means. Because I don't relate to it myself, but maybe it's just the way it's worded. But it's an interesting conversation that is generated.
I suppose it's also how pattern recognition helps you in life, with, say, the basic things like work and perhaps relationships and socializing, which I think any autistic group would be, concerned with.
The next post is from the Autistic Collective CIC East Renfrewshire, who are a non-profit organisation support learning and empowerment for parents and carers and those who support autistic people. And what they've shared is about a musician called Ren. And they shared a video from YouTube. They say that Ren is a phenomenal artist and so much more besides, including being a social commentator. Shades of a younger Darren McGarvey. Not that Darren is old at all. If you're not aware of Ren, check out his backstory. Extreme burnout and chronic illness, and the mental health concerns that came with that. Like Darren, he's had such a huge inspiration for so many marginalised young people who connect with his journey and vision, and jaw-dropping talent. Know you're a fan too, Bobby Elman, Autistic Experience Consultancy and Training. Has anyone heard of this musician?
No. Darren McGarvey's low-key, isn't he? He was kind of like a rapper, politically orientated Scottish rapper and TV personality.
Yeah, all the names that were sort of mentioned there, I feel, out the look, 'cause I have no idea who they're talking about, really. But what I do like is they're sharing information about people that will be inspirational to others that people may know. So I was just kind of wondering if people, around the virtual table knew about these musicians and artists. I just think it's a very positive thing to share.
Is that a wheelchair in the photo?
It may be, I'm unsure.
I suppose the image being represented is maybe like a patient. Yeah. There's a great guitarist I've seen on YouTube who plays with one arm. He only has one arm. It's incredible.
I suppose it's probably just a bad timing of sharing the post, not because there's anything wrong with the post, because it's a video and it's a link. It's probably more better for people to have a look at their leisure rather than actually discussing, because there isn't much more information on that. I was just kind of curious if anyone actually heard of them, because they're kind of highly recommended by the post. Well, thanks everyone. It's been a good conversation again. We've come to the end of the broadcast. We went through quite a lot of topics there. And as always, it seems to follow a theme quite authentically and naturally, but not deliberately. So thanks everyone who took part in the conversation, and thanks to all those who shared those posts that created these conversations. So this is Harry's Facebook for Sunday the 3rd of August 2025, which is part of the Spectrum Voices conversation, which is held every Sunday, 5:55 PM to 7:30 PM UK time, which is shared on Facebook Live, YouTube, LinkedIn, and other platforms. So thank you once again, and I'll hand over to Jules.
Thank you, Harry. As always, really enjoyable and thought-provoking. This is the part of Sunday where we look at the work we do at Autistic Radio through Autistic Association and have an open meeting to include you in our thoughts.